Are we alone in the universe? Former federal agent and paranormal investigator Ben Hansen says no.
Yeah, so interesting. He is reopening case files from some of the most incredible UFO encounters in history in his new Discovery Plus series, UFO Witness.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you.
You too. Good day.
All right. So the first thing I want to ask is, they're not the typical flying saucer-shaped UFOs that we're talking about. The ones that I saw in the first episode of the show, they look like flying Tic Tacs. Is that right?
That's correct. We have these Navy videos that had been released over the past couple of years where our Navy fighters were chasing Tic Tacs, for lack of a better term. But it's not something that interestingly is brand new. And in the series, that's kind of the whole idea, is we go back in time and look to see if others had reported similar typed objects.
So you were a former federal agent, but you got your interest piqued in this a long time ago, and it sounds like it was from your grandfather. Is that correct?
That is correct. Well, I could say he fueled it, because I was into the subject because of movies like E.T., the books that I was reading. It wasn't until I was about, 14 years old, I was told my grandfather had worked underground in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where a lot of the back engineering we know took place. And he was very secretive, even to the point, when he passed away, he would give us little kind of hints and clues that he was involved in something very big.
I think one of the most interesting, well, it's all interesting, including the interview with Jenny Zeidman. I'm so sorry that she recently passed away. That's so unfortunate. But the Rick Jesse and the helicopter pilot, where the helicopter is just completely sucked by magnetic forces. I mean, that's kind of undisputable, like what happened, right?
It is, and we were very lucky to talk to Rick Jesse. He was the only surviving member of the crew who was still alive, and he was kind of hesitant. He wasn't. We're a brand new show. Wasn't sure the spin that we were going to take on this, and I had to convince him to sit down and say, "Look, I just want to hear your story." And it was very powerful, because he didn't embellish it, but he confirmed the details that came out in the original report, which is we have military helicopter in a near-miss collision with a UFO that appears to be cylindrical, sort of tic-tac shaped. And I think it's really important, because think of the implications. Our military are now involved in dogfights with similar objects, and we don't know who they are.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So you've been opening some of these files that have been closed for decades. What do you think, the general public would be most surprised about when when you talk about these files?
I think the public would be most surprised that there's so many witnesses and there's so many documents that I don't think have been released yet. And in fact, as the show was starting to air, we just now realized that due to the efforts of private people, really, the Freedom of Information Act has gotten the CIA thousands of pages of new documents. So they keep coming out. I still think they're holding back the best stuff they're unwilling to declassify. So I think, the Congress is interested. They're trying to get this to happen. But whoever the secret keepers are, it's really up to them as to how much they're going to let us know what's been going on.
And there's a whole organization, NARCAP. It supports victims of UFOs. Is that right? There's a whole organization dedicated to this?
Well, there's several organizations. There's NARCAP, there's MUFON, there's a lot of ones that specialize, for example, in pilot reports, and to try and help them to feel more comfortable to come out and talk about it.
Okay.
It was only, still, you don't give any pilots that come out and want to say what they've seen, because it could, have implications on their career.
And so when people hear these stories, it's just an incredible show, just watching one episode of it. I'm sure there's a lot of skeptics. They're like, absolutely not. But I mean, the witnesses and the people that you talk to, insist that this is real. What do you say to those people who are skeptics of all this?
I think we should be skeptical. Definitely, everyone should be. The problem is when someone sets out determined that it can't be. It's not true because that can't be. That's the problem, because if you put any validity, for example, in polygraphs, in government documents, investigations, the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of reports, the mass sightings we've had, it's overwhelming. If you took this to any criminal court and presented it, the culprit would be convicted. And so I think you have to sit back and say, I don't like the idea that we're being visited, or it sounds far-fetched. Well, let's just start with the fact that people are seeing these things and the phenomenon is real. That's indisputable. And let's start there, and then let's work and try to figure out what's really going on.
And how many reports of UFOs are we getting? We get about 24 reports every year, or are there more or less?
Oh, we're far, far more than that. I mean, what's really difficult is that we can only have a best estimate. There is no official UFO reporting center where government says this is who you call. They've kind of tried to do that, but people don't know who to call. So if you take the best estimate is hundreds of thousands, within the United States, but only about 1 in every 450 people report it, then you've got just a wide swath of people who have nowhere that they're going to, and they just kind of keep it to themselves.
Wow.
That's
really
incredible.
Really incredible.
So when the UFOs, there's been so many reports of this happening. What do you think they're visiting for?
Yeah, what do they want? And how do we defend ourselves against them?
Well, and that's all theory-based as well, because there could be multiple species. And a lot of people believe it's not just one. So each species could have a different motivation, right? Maybe they're here to explore new places where they live. Maybe we're kind of like a science experiment. Maybe they're here to kind of stop us from, destroying ourselves. So there could be different motivations. And from the people I've talked to, it does seem like some have more malevolent or benevolent. That's the real problem. But what do we do about it? How can we find out? They really hold all the cards.
Yeah.
That's the most frustrating thing, is that they're going to make themselves known when they want to.
All right, we have to leave it there, but we're very interested. Thank you, Ben, for joining us. The show is streaming on the new Discovery Plus channel. You can get more information at discoveryplus.com. Thank you, Ben. We appreciate it.